Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sish Iqbal from Black Diamond Public School. Now, I am representing the in-house training for the topic Science of Behavior. Hope you will learn so much things from this session. So stay connected. Behavioral science, the science of behavior. As we all know that science concerned with the study, observation, and explanation of human behavior, either in single individual or in groups. Behavioral science also concerned with the study of individual differences in relationship to the patient's behavior. To understand any complex human activity, one must grasp the language and approach of the individual who pursue it. So it is with understanding science and scientific research. One must know and understand, at least in part, scientific language and the scientific approach to problem solving. One of the most confusing things to the student of science is the special way scientists use ordinary words. To make matter worse, they invent new words. There are good reasons for this specialized use of language. They will become evident later. For now, suffice is to say that we must understand and learn the language of social scientists. When investigators tell us about their independent and dependent variables, we must know what they mean. What they tell us, what they have randomized their experimental procedures. What must not only know what they mean, we must understand why they do as so. Similarly, the scientist approach to problems must be clearly understood. It is not so much that this approach is different from the layperson. It is different, of course, but it is not strange and historic. This is quite the contrary. When understood, it will seem normal and natural and almost inevitable what the scientist does. Indeed, we will probably wonder why much more human thinking and problem solving are not consciously structured along such lines. Scientists systematically and empirically test their theories by hypothesis. Non-scientists test hypotheses too, but they test them in a selective fashion. They often select evidence simply because it is consistent with the hypothesis. Take the stereotype. Asians are science and math oriented. If people believe this, they can easily verify the belief by nothing that many Asians are engineers and scientists. Exceptions to the stereotype. The non-science Asian or the mathematically challenged Asian, for example, are not perceived. Sophisticated social and behavioral scientists, knowing this selection tendency to be a common physiological phenomenon, carefully guard this research against their own preconceptions and predilections, and against selective support of the hypothesis. For one thing, they are not content with armchair or flat exploration of relations. They must test the relations in the laboratory or in the field. They are not content, for example, with the presumed relations between methods of teaching and achievements, between intelligence and creativity, between values and administrative decisions. They insist upon systematic, controlled, and empirical testing of these relations. The third difference lies in the notion of control. In scientific research, control means several things. For the present, let it mean that the scientist tries systematically to rule out variables that are possible causes of the effects under study other than the variables hypothesized to be causes. Lay people seldom bother to control systematically their explanations of observed phenomena. They ordinarily make little effort to control extraneous sources of influence. They tend to accept those explanations that are in accord with their preconceptions and biases. If they believe that slum conditions produce delinquency, they tend to disgrade delinquency in non-slum neighborhoods. The scientist, on the other hand, seeks out and controls delinquency incidents in different kinds of neighborhoods. The difference of course is profound. Another difference between science and common sense is perhaps not so sharp. It was said earlier that the scientist is constantly preoccupied with relations among phenomena. The layperson also does this by using common sense of explanation of phenomena, but the scientist consciously and systematically pursues relations. The layperson's preoccupation with relation is loose, unsystematic and uncontrolled. The layperson often seizes, for example, on the fortuitous occurrence of two phenomena and immediately links them indissolubly as cause and effect. In more recent terminology, this relation may be expressed: positive reinforcement produces greater increments of learning than does punishment. The relation is between reinforcement and learning. Educators and parents of the 19th century often assumed that punishment was the more effective agent in learning. Educators and parents of the present often assume that positive reinforcement is more effective, but may say that their viewpoints are only common sense. It is obvious that if you reward or punish a child, he or she will learn better. The scientist, on the other, or neither of these viewpoints, would probably insist on systematic and controlled testing of both. Using the scientific methods, it is incentive to be substantially related to arithmetic achievement. The group receiving praise score higher than the reproof of ignored groups. A final difference between common sense and science lies in different explanations of observed phenomena. The scientist, when attempting to explain the relations among observed phenomena, carefully rules out what have been called metaphysical explanations. A metaphysical explanation is simply a proposition that cannot be tested. For example, that people are poor and starving because God's will it, or that is wrong to be authoritarian, is to talk metaphysically. None of these propositions can be tested, thus they are metaphysical. As such, science is not concerned with them. This does not mean that scientists would necessarily spurn such statements, say they are not true, or claim they are meaningless. It simply means that as scientists they are not concerned with them. In short, science is concerned with things that can be publicly observed and tested. If propositions or questions do not contain implications for such public observations and testing, they are not scientific prepositions or questions. Now when we talk about the behavioral science, that behavioral science is not a general term, it's a complex term that encompasses all the disciplines that explore the activities of and interaction among the organisms in the natural world. Charles Sanders Peirce, as reported in Bachelor, said that there are four general ways of knowing, or as he put it, fixing beliefs. In the ensuing conditions, the authors are taking some liberties with Peirce's original formulation in an attempt to clarify the ideas and to make them more germane to the present discussion. Now when we talk about science, then what is science? The question is not easy to answer. Indeed, no definition of science will be directly attempted. We shall instead talk about the notions and views of science, and then we will try to explain the various functions of science. Science is badly a misunderstood word. There seem to be three popular stereotypes that impede understanding of scientific activity. One is the white coat stethoscope laboratory stereotype. Scientists are perceived as individuals who work with faces. They use complicated equipments, do innumerable experiments, and pile up facts for the ultimate purpose of improving the lot of humanity. Thus, while somewhat under imaginative grubbers after facts, they are redeemed by motive novels. You can believe that when, for example, they tell you that such and such toothpaste is good for you or that you should not smoke cigarette. The second stereotype of scientists that they are brilliant individuals who think, spin complex theories and spend their time in average hours aloof from the world and its problems. They are impractical theorists, even though their thinking and theory occasionally lead to result of practical significance like atomic energy. The third stereotype and the most important stereotype of the society is that it equates science with engineering and technology. They build bridges, the improvement of automobiles, missiles, the automation of industry, the invention of teaching machines, and the likes are thought to be science. The scientist's job in this conception is to work at the improvement of inventions and artifacts. The scientist is conceived to be a sort of highly skilled engineer working to make life smooth and efficient. These notions impede student understanding of science, the activities and thinking of the scientist, the scientific research in general. In short, they make the student task harder than it would otherwise be. Thus, they should be cleared away to make room for more adequate nations. There are basically two broad views of science, the static and the dynamic. When we talk about the static, it is the science that an activity that contributes systemized and information in the world. The scientist's job is to discover new facts and to add them to the already existing body of information. Science is even conceived to be a body of facts. In this view, science is also a way of explaining observed phenomena. They emphasis on the present state of knowledge and adding to it on the present state of laws, theories, hypotheses and principles. The dynamic view, on the other hand, regards science most as an activity, what scientists do. The present state of knowledge is important, of course, but it is important mainly because it is the base for further scientific theory and research. This has been called a heuristic view. The word heuristic, meaning serving to discover or reveal, now has the notion of self-discovery connected with it. A heuristic method of teaching, for instance, emphasizes students discovering things for themselves. The heuristic view in science emphasizes theory and interconnected conceptual schemes that are fruitful for further research. A heuristic emphasis is a discovery emphasis. It is the heuristic aspect of science that distinguishes it in good part from engineering and technology. On the basis of heuristic hunch, the scientists take a risky leap. It is the plunge by which we gain a foothold at another shore of reality. One such plunges the scientist has to stake bit by bit in his entire professional life. As anyone who fears being mistaken and for this reason study a safe or certain scientific method should never enter upon any scientific inquiry. Heuristic may also be called problem solving, but the emphasis is on imaginative and not routine problem solving. The heuristic view in science stresses problem solving rather than facts and bodies of information. A league established facts and bodies of information are important to the heuristic scientist because they help lead to further theory, further discovery and further investigation, still avoiding a direct definition of science but certainly implying one. We now look at the function of science. Here we find two distinct views. The practical person, the non-scientist, generally thinks of science as a discipline or activity aimed at improving things, making decisions, progress, etc. Some scientists too take this position. The function of science is the view to make discoveries, to learn facts, to advance knowledge in order to improve things. Branches of science are clearly of this character, receive wide and strong support. Witnesses says that science is just a respective term which involves the systematic study of analysis, investigation of human as well as animal behavior. It is also done through controlled and naturalization, experimental observation and rigorous formation. A very different view of function of science is well explained by Braithwaite. The function of science is to establish general laws covering of behaviors and empirical events. The phenomenon is to be explained, of course, is the school failure, or perhaps more accurately school achievement. That is, school failure could be perceived as being at one end of the school achievement continuum, with school success being at the other end. School failure is explained by specified relations between each of the 7 variables and school failure, or by combinations of the 7 variables and school failure. The scientist successfully using this set of constructs then understands school failure. It is obvious that explanation and prediction can be subsumed under theory. The very nature of a theory lies in its explanation of observed phenomena. Take reinforcement theory. A simple preposition flowing from this theory is, if a response is rewarded when it occurs, it will tend to be repeated. The physiological scientist whom first formulated some such preposition did so as an explanation of the observed repetitious occurrence of responses. Why did they occur and reoccur with dependable regularity? Because the answer is simple, they were awarded. This is an explanation, although it may not be satisfactory explanation to many people. Someone else may ask why reward increases the likelihood of a response occurrence. A full-blown theory would have the explanation. Today, however, there is no really satisfactory answer. All we can say is that with a high degree of probability, the reinforcement of a response makes the responses more likely to occur and reoccur. In other words, the prepositions of a theory, the statements of relation, constitute the explanation as far as the theory is concerned of observed natural phenomena. Now on prediction and control. It can be said that scientists do not really have to be concerned with explanation and understanding. Only prediction and control are necessary. Proponents of this point of view may say that the adequacy of a theory is the predictive power. If by using their theory we are able to predict successfully, then the theory is confirmed and this is enough. We need not necessarily look for further underlying explanation. Since we can predict reliably, we can control because control is deducible from prediction. The prediction view of science has validity. But as far as this book is concerned, prediction is considered to be an aspect of theory. By its very nature, a theory predicts, that is, when from the primitive propositions of a theory we can deduce more complex ones, we are in essence predicting. When we explain observed phenomena, we are always stating a relation between, say, the class A and the class B. Scientific explanation inheres in specifying the relations between one class of empirical events to the another. Under certain conditions, we say if class B, A and B referring to classes of objects or events. But this is prediction. Prediction from A to B. Thus, a theoretical explanation implies prediction, and we come back to the idea that theory is the ultimate aim of science. All else flow from theory. There is no intention here to discredit or denigrate research that is not specifically and consciously theoretical oriented. Now when we talk about the spectrum of behavioral science, so it has a broad spectrum. Its spectrum are divided into several charts. The first one is psychology, the study of the mind occurring partly via the study of behavior. The study of the nature, function and phenomena of human beings are psychology. Theories are tentative explanation. Each theory is evaluated empirically to determine how well it predicts new findings. Theories can be used to guide one's research plan by generating testable hypotheses and to organize facts obtained from the testing of the hypothesis. A good theory is one that cannot fill all observations. One should be able to find an occurrence that would contradict it. Blonder's theory of N-rays is an example of pure theory. Blonder claimed that the matter emitted N-rays, although N-rays were later demonstrated to be non-existent. Barber reported that nearly 100 papers were published in a single year on N-rays in France. Blonder even developed elaborate equipments for the viewing of N-rays. Scientific investigations is empirical. If the scientist perceives or believes something is so, the belief must somehow or other put to an outside independent test. Subjective itself, in other words, must be checked against objective reality. Scientists must always subject their notions of the code of empirical inquiry and test. Scientists are hypercritical of the results of their own and others' research. Every scientist writing a research report has other scientists reading what one writes while he or she writes it. Though it is easy to aggregate or overgeneralize then writing up one's own work, it is not easy to escape the feeling of scientific eyes constantly peering over one's shoulder. In science, there is a peer review. This means that others of equal training and knowledge are called upon to evaluate another scientific works before it is published in scientific journals. There are both positive and negative points concerning it. It is through peer review that fraudulent studies have been exposed. The essay written by R.W. Wood on his experience, the non-existence of N-rays, gives a clear demonstration of this. Peer review works very well for science and it promotes quality research. The system, however, is not perfect. There are occasions where peer review worked against science. This is documented throughout history with people such as Kepler, Galileo, Copernicus, Zener, and Semmelweis. The idea of these individuals were not just popular with their peers. More recently in psychology, The works of John Garcia on the biological constraints of learning went contrary to his peers. In a journal that did not have peer review. Others who did Gracia work and replicate it found Gracia works to be valuable. In the large majority of the cases, peer review of science is beneficial. Thirdly, knowledge obtained scientifically is not subject to moral evaluation. The results are neither considered bad or good, but in terms of its validity and reliability, the scientific method is, however, subject to issues of morality. That is, scientists are held responsible to the methods used in obtaining scientific knowledge. In psychology, codes of ethics are enforced to protect those under study. Science is a cooperative venture. Information obtained from science is available to all. Plus, the scientific method is well known and available to all the chosen is. It is the rise of the modern science that said that the new elements added in the 17th century was the use of deductive reasoning. Here is what experience, knowledge and perceptivity are important. When we talk about the psychology, the scientific study of society, the study of the development, nature and laws of human society. Sociology also focuses on social stratification, social class, social mobility, religion, secularism, law and deviance. Often the scientist, when reducing the consequences of a formulated hypothesis, will arrive at a problem quite different from one started with. On the other hand, the deductions may lead to the belief that problem cannot be solved with present technical tools. For example, before modern statistics was developed, certain behavioral research problems were insoluble. It was difficult, if not possible, to test two or three interdependent hypotheses at one time. It was next to impossible to test the interactive effects of the variables. And now we have reason to believe that certain problems are insoluble unless they are tackled in a best manner. An example of this is teaching methods and their methodology. Its relation to the achievement and other variables. It is likely the teaching methods do not differ much if we study only their simple effects. Teaching methods probably work differently under different conditions, with different teachers and with different pupils. It is said that the methods interact with the conditions and with the characteristics of the teachers and of pupils. Simon stated another example of this. Simon pointed out a research on pilot training proposed by Williams and Adelson in 1954 could not be carried out using traditional experimental research methods. The study proposed to study 34 variables and their influence on pilot training. Using traditional research methods, the number of variables under study was too overwhelming. Over 20 years, Simon showed that such studies could be effectively studied using economical multi-factor design. An example may help us understand this reasoning deduction step. Suppose an investigator becomes intruded with aggressive behavior. The investigator wonders why people are often aggressive in situations where aggressiveness may not be appropriate. Personal observation leads to the notion that aggressive behavior seems to occur when people have experienced difficulties of one kind or another. Hence, thinking for some time, reading the literature for clues and making further observations, the hypothesis is formulated. Frustration leads to aggression. Frustration is defined as prevention from reaching a goal and aggression as behavior characterized by physical or verbal attack on other person or objects. What follows from this statement like if frustration leads to aggression, then we should find a great deal of aggression among children who are in schools that are restrictive, schools that do not permit children from freedom and self-expression. Similarly, in difficult social situations, assuming such situations are frustrating, we should not expect more aggression than is usual. Reasoning further, if we give experimental subjects interesting problems to solve and then prevent them from solving them, we can predict some kind of aggressive behavior. In a nutshell, this process of moving from a broader picture to a more specific one is called deductive reasoning. Reasoning as indicated change the problem. We may realize that the initial point of a special case of a broader, more fundamental and important problem. We may start with a narrow hypothesis. Restrictive school situations lead to negativism in children. Then we can generalize the problem to the form. Frustration leads to aggression. While this is different from the thinking that is discussed earlier, it is important because of what could almost be called its heuristic quality. Reasoning can help to wider, more basic and thus more significant problems as well as we provide testable implications of the original hypothesis. This type of reasoning is called inductive reasoning. It starts from particular facts and moves to a general statement or hypothesis. If one is not careful, this method could lead to faculty reasoning. This is due to the methods of natural tendency to exclude other data that do not fit the hypothesis. This inducive reasoning method is inclined to look for supportive data rather than refuting evidences. When we talk about an example, that is generate a rule for the following sequence number, that is 357. Students were told that they could ask about other sequence. Students could receive feedback on each sequence proposed as to whether it fits or does not fit the rule the experimenter had in mind. When the students felt confident, they could force the rule. Some students would offer 9, 11, 13. They are told with 15, 17, 19 and so on. And again they are told that this sequence fits. The students may offer as their answer. The rule is 3 consecutive odd numbers, which would be told that this is not the rule. Others that would be offered after some good proposals, increasing numbers in increments of 2 or odd numbers in increment of 2. Psychology, the study of the mind occurring partly via the study of behavior, the study of the nature, functions and phenomena of human beings. Sociology, the scientific study of society, the society or the study of the development, nature and laws of human society. Sociology also focuses on social stratification, social class, social mobility, religion, secularism, law and deviance. There are also some broad spectrums of behavioral science, that is anthropology and ethology. When we talk about the anthropology, it is a very general term and is often used when we study about the behavioral science. So, when we talk about the anthropology, it generally the study of the origins, history, mechanisms and the constitutions of the human culture. But it is not just like that. It has a confined definition. It is a very broad definition that anthropology is the scientific study of humanity concerned with human behavior, human biology, cultures, society and linguistics in both the present and past, including past human species. Social anthropology studies patterns of behavior while cultural anthropology studies cultural meaning, including norms and values. This term is commonly used today. Linguistic anthropology studies how language influences social life. Biological or physical anthropology studies the biological developments of humans. This term is often termed as anthropology of the past, that studies human activity through investigations and physical evidences. It is considered as a branch of anthropology in North America as well as in Asia, while in Europe archaeology is viewed as a discipline in its own right or grouped under the related discipline. The Anthropology is to say the science that treats of man is divided ordinarily with reason into anatomy, which considers the body and the parts, and psychology, which speaks of the soul. Sporadic use of the term for some of the subject matter structured subsequently, such as the use of LT steers to describe the natural history, or paleontology of a man based on comparative anatomy, and the creation of a chair in anthropology and ethnography in 1850 at the French National Museum of Natural History by Louis Armand de Frasco. That various short-lived organizations of anthropologies had already been formed. The first use of term ethnology was formed in 1839. Its members were primarily anti-slavery activists. Anthropology and many other current fields are intellectual results of the comparative methods developed in the earlier 19th century. Theorists in such diverse fields as anatomy, linguistics, and ethnology, making feature by feature comparison of their subject matters, were beginning to suspect that similarity between animals, languages, and folkways were the result of processes or laws unknown to them. For them, publication of the Charles Darwin on the origin of species was the epiphany of the everything that they had begun to suspect. Darwin himself arrived at the conclusion through comparison of species he had seen in agrogamy and in the wild. But when we talk about the anthropology in today's term, this meager statistics expanded in the 20th century to comprise anthropology departments in the majority of the world's higher educational institutions, many thousand in numbers. Anthropology has diverged from a few major subdivisions to dozens more. Practical anthropology, the use of anthropological knowledge and technique to solve specific problems, has arrived. For example, the presence of buried victims might stimulate the use of forensic archaeologists to recreate the final scene. The organization has reached a global level. For example, the World Council of Anthropological Associations, a network of national, regional, and international associations that aims to promote worldwide communication and cooperation in anthropology, currently contains members from about 3 dozen nations. Next, we will talk about ethnology. It is also a broad spectrum of science, and it is closely related to anthropology. When we talk about the ethnology or the ethology, it is the study of behavior of non-human species in the natural setting. It is the scientific study of animal behavior, usually with a focus on behavior under natural conditions and viewing behavior as a evolutionary adaptive trait. Behavioralism as a term also describes the scientific and objective material of human behavior, usually referring to the measured responses to stimuli or to trained behavioral responses in laboratory context, without a particular emphasis on evolutionary adaptivity. Throughout history, different naturalists have studied aspects of animal behavior. Ethology has its scientific roots in the work of Charles Darwin, of an American and German ornithologist in the late 19th and early 20th century. The modern discipline of ethnology is generally considered to have begun during the 1930s with the work of Dutch biologist Nicolaas Tinbergen and Australian biologist Konrad Lorenz and Carl von Frisch, the three recipients of 1973 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Ethology combines laboratory and field science with a strong relation to some other disciplines such as neuroanatomy, ecology, and evolutionary biology. Ethologists typically show interest in a behavior processes rather than in particular animal group, and often study one type of behavior such as aggression in a number of unrelated species. Ethology is a rapid growing field. Since the dawn of the 21st century, researchers have re-examined and reached new conclusions in many aspects of animal communication, emotion, culture, learning, and sexuality that the scientific community long through it understood. New fields such as neuroethology have developed. Understanding ethology or animal behavior can be important in animal training. Considering the natural behaviors of different species or breeds enables trainers to select the individuals best suited to perform the required task. It also enables trainers to encourage the performance of naturally occurring behaviors and the discontinuance of the undesirable world. Next, when we talk about ecology, ecology is a term that deals with the relation of human beings to their environment and quantification of their relation. The relations of human beings to their environment and the quantification of their relationship. When we talk about the epidemiology, it is the study of illness in a defined population. Now, we have to talk about the various objectives of the behavioral science. First objective, or we can say that it is a teaching that teaches about the various objectives of the behavioral science. The first objective is that the humanization of the education of doctors, a focus on the science of the behavior, understanding normal human behavior, or a preparation for the clinical psychiatry. It is a branch of science as psychology, sociology, or anthropology that deals primarily with human actions and often seeks to generalize about human society. It is a discipline. It emphasizes human mental process. It gives us a I feeling. In a discipline, it emphasizes human society and association in the past. Empirical evidences that links with documents, tools, fossils, etc. When we talk about the sociology, its importance is that it gives us a we feeling. It does not only talk about I, but it works for collective response. Society demands empirical evidence that links sociological ideas of life experience. Behavioral science is that branch of science which is concerned with the study of human and animal behavior. The term behavioral science encompasses all the disciplines that explore the activities and interaction among organisms in this natural world. It involves the systematic analysis and investigation of human and animal behavior through controlled and well observation and in disciplined experiments. Now we will talk about the various domains for the behavioral science in medical teaching. In this term, we will first talk about the mind-body interaction. It is a very key term that mind-body interaction refers the holistic association and interactive process between wisdom, thinking, belief and physiological interaction, which critically affects health. The main goal of nursing is to maintain mind and body in a healthy state of well-being. Few reports in the literature have addressed that the evolution of application of MBI. MBI is the short form of mind-body interaction. This is a concept that is followed step by step based on the procedure of Walker and Avent. The result defines the characteristics of MBI as being aware of physiosomatic effects interacting between physiology, neurology, immunology and others, turning out a biopsychology social status. It also includes geography, culture, race, gender, age, education, profession, values, personality, experience and health status. Consequences of mind-brain interaction include well-being, illness and death. This paper will be more effective to study about the MBI. Next, when we talk about the patient behavior, it is also a very key term that must be included in the behavioral science. Patient behavior plays a crucial role in adherence and the success of the treatment. Healthcare professionals who understand patient behavior and behavioral models and frameworks can design more successful patient support programs that are aware of the needs of the patients. Basically, there are five types of patients. Independent schematic, one of the toughest to deal with. This type of patient is naturally skeptic about expert advice. The researcher, the passive dependent, the flexible and the open-minded explorer. But we have also some responsibility while adhering a patient, that is providing information, asking questions, follows all the important instructions, accepting results, following facility rules, regulations, showing respect and truthfulness, meeting financial commitments. Next, there are also some roles as physician role and behavior. Physician role and behavior. Next is physician, patient and interaction. Next is social and cultural issues in health care, because we also have to consider various social and cultural issues that can affect a person's health. Last is so crucial domain, that is health policy and economics. The study of health economics focuses on the economic behavior of the individuals, providers, insurers and international, federal, states, local governments, so on. They include financial health care provider payment system and restructuring health systems. Human behavior. When we talk about the human behavior, behavior refers to the action or reaction of an object or organism, usually in relation to the environment. Human behavior is the collection of behaviors exhibited by human beings. Some of them are behavior can be conscious or unconscious, overt or covert, voluntary or involuntary. Human behavior of people falls within a range that is unusual, acceptable, common, outside acceptability, etc. The acceptability of behavior and normativity is evaluated relative to social and moral norms and regulated by various means of social control. Social behavior is a behavior especially directed at other people. It is the potential and expressed capacity, that is mental, physical and social, of human individuals or group to respond to internal and external stimuli throughout their life. While specific traits on one personality, temperament and genetics may be more consistent, other behaviors change as one moves between life stages, that is from birth through adolescence, adulthood, parenthood and retirement. Behavior is also driven as a part by thoughts, feelings which provide insight into individual psyche, revealing such things as attitudes and values. Human behavior is shaped by psychological traits as personality types vary from person to person, producing different actions and behavior. Extroverted people, for instance, are more likely than introvert people to participate in social activities. The behavior of humans, just as of other organisms, falls upon a spectrum whereby some behaviors are common while others unusual, and some are acceptable while others beyond acceptable limits. The acceptability of behavior depends heavily upon social norms and is regulated by various means of social control, partly due to the inherently conformist nature of human society in general. Thus, social norms also condition behavior whereby humans are pressured into certain rules and displaying certain behaviors that are deemed acceptable or unacceptable depending on the given society or the culture. Human behavior is studied by the social sciences, which include psychology, sociology, economics and anthropology. In society, behavior may broadly refer to all basic human actions, including those that possess no meaning, actions directed at no person. Behavior in this general sense should not be mistaken with social behavior. Social behavior, a subset of human behavior that accounts for actions directed at others, is concerned with the considerable influence of social interaction, culture as well as ethics, social environment, authority, persuasion and coercion. Social behavior is that behavior that is specifically directed at other people. There are several categories of the human behavior. The various four categories of human behavior are behavior detectability, behavior or the nature that we follow, we can detect with our senses, that is by seeing, by hearing, by touching, or by behavior that cannot be detected by our senses, that is thinking. Some behaviors are purposive, that is goal driven, that involves some action. Human behavior involves performance or skilled behavior, behavior that demonstrates skills of various kinds from work to sports. Category of instinctual behavior having to do with the anatomical or physiological nature of the organism. Behavior in this category is determined by the need or desire to avoid pain and gain pleasure. When we talk about the various factors that can affect a human behavior are, because all the factors that affect a human behavior is must for us to understand about their nature. The first behavior that is influenced is culture, emotions, ethics, rapport, persuasion, genetics, attitude, values, authority, hypnosis, coercion. Various relevances of behavioral science to health and medicine. That is, the relevance is demonstrated as etiology of illness, presentation of illness, delivery of healthcare, aspects of social and psychological treatment. Behavioral and social factors are important in planning for healthcare with assessment and treatment of both physical and psychiatric disorder. Cultural factors play a important role in the behavior of the patient and treatment. Social norms, the often unspoken rules of a group, shape not only our behaviors but also our attitudes. An individual's behavior varies depending on the groups. They are a part of the characteristic of society that allows their norm to heavily impact the society. Without the social norms, human society will not function as it currently does. Humans would have to be more abstract in their behavior, as there could be not a pre-tested normal institutionalized lifestyle, and individuals would have to make many more choices for themselves. The institutionalization of norms is, however, inherent in human society, perhaps as a direct result of the desire to be accepted by others, which leads humans to manipulate their own behavior to fit it with others. Depending on the nature and upon one's perspective, norms can impact different sections of society both positively, derising and negatively, that is racism and drug. Another important aspect of human behavior is religion and spirituality. According to research, 54% of adults around the world state that religion is very important in their lives. Religion plays a large role in the life of many people around the world, and it affects their behavior towards others. For example, one of the 5 pillars of Islam is zakat. This is the practice whereby Muslims who can afford to are required to donate 2.5% of their wealth to those in need. Many religions people regularly attend services with other members of their religion. They may take part in religious rituals and festivals like Diwali and Easter. Behavioral and social factors are important in planning for healthcare and assessment. The various methods of studying the human behavior are observation, structured interviews, checklists, ratings, scales, self-rating scales, psychometric, and etc. The various data sources are official reports, institution reports, national and local data. Now we came to know a lot about the behavioral determinants of human behavior. Now I would like to conclude with my words that biological behavior is biologically determined. It is the complexity of the behavior of an organism is related to the complexity of its nervous system. Generally, organisms with complex nervous system have a greater capacity to learn new responses and adjust their behavior. So now we have to complete this session. I thought you have learned a lot from this. Thank you for joining the session. Thank you so much.